Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming, despite the miserable weather. Thank you for coming. Fernanda, Fabian, and I would like to welcome you to our seminar on writing. It's been a very long time since our last in-person seminar.
Sorry to interrupt you, Lydia. I was checking, right, in my records, 2017. So face to face, in the face. Yeah, 6 years now.
Thank you, Mariano.
Well,
so we are more than pleased to have you all here today. Our speaker needs no introduction. Everybody knows Mariano ALARCON. He's very well known and highly respected in our academic community.
thank you.
But anyway, Fernanda will now share with you an overview, a brief overview of his academic background.
Okay, what can I tell you?
I hope you enjoy, you make the most of this meeting. It's very interesting, and he's been working on that for quite a long time.
No doubt, without a shadow of doubt.
Okay, well, let's say something about Mariano. Mariano is a teacher of English, graduated from Instituto de Profesorado Jorge González. He's also a translator and an interpreter, and also a lawyer from the School of Law of the University of Buenos Aires. He worked as a teacher at the Nacional Buenos Aires, Colegio Nacional Buenos Aires, where he was the head of the English department. And he is currently teaching English at the University of Buenos Aires at the School of Law, and he's also a teacher here. He's been teaching English for more than 45 years, but he started when he was very little.
Very small, practically a baby.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, and he has given more than 150 talks.
Yeah, well, actually, this is my 151st. Right? Oh, thank you. I wasn't fishing for a compliment.
Well, okay, as Lilian and Fernanda said, right, thank you very much for coming and for signing up for this seminar, which will be held by Mariano, an old timer. Yeah? Okay, don't worry, we won't be joking.
No problem.
We're 66 age. No, that's okay.
No issues there.
Well, maybe you are wondering why we have decided to deal with this topic, right? Writing, how we can help our students to write. You know that writing is crucial, yes, in most exams, international exams and our exams. So, and even in everyday life, you know, when students had to apply for a job, when they had to write a letter, etc., etc. So, if we pay attention to our exam is divided into two parts, part A and part B. Part B is 50% of the exam. 50% of the exam. So, part A deals with grammar, vocabulary, reading comprehension, but writing is essential. So as to come to an agreement and to say, well, this is how, yes, we want our students in general, your students, to write. That's why we have decided to offer Mariano to deliver this, so that we all come to an agreement, right? So basically, because this is half of the exam, right? Obviously, that we correct mistakes, grammar, everything. Then Mariano will be talking about that. But paragraphing is very important, right? The format of a letter is not the format of an essay. The format of an essay, an opinion essay, is not the same. So that is something he will refer to later on, right? So no more words from me, right? Mariano, it's all yours, right?
Thank you, three of you.
Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, right. Well, as Lily has just said, thank you all for joining us on such a rainy day as this one, right? The expectations about the weather are not that high, but anyhow, you've done your best, right? So really, we appreciate that. Now, what brings us together today? Writing. As simple as that, and as difficult as that, right? What happens when we ask our students to write? Well, you know that one of the secrets in life to happiness is to have aims and to have attainable aims. There's nothing that creates more frustration both in teachers and in students than to have unattainable aims, right? So writing may become an unattainable aim, right, if we don't tackle it properly, right? Well, the thing is this, to begin with. Do our students write in Spanish?
No.
So, if they don't write in Spanish, even less can we expect them to write in English, let alone, right? So, how can we make them write in good enough English, right? Properly, following the layout, the rubric given, in decent English? I have chosen the word very special, decent, right? Yes. Okay, so, this is easier said than done, right? Now, when we set a topic, for example, in class for students to follow, what do students immediately start doing? Do they stop and take time to collect their thoughts, to organize mentally, right, the composition of the writing they're going to produce, or right away they start writing, yes, as soon as they read the rubric?
No, it's a place that complaining.
Well, first complaining, right, yeah, complaining, exactly, yes, right. We shouldn't forget that we're dealing with teenagers, right, and that's the essence of a teenager, right, complaining, exactly. So, our seminar today aims at trying to improve their writing skills, if possible, right? So, when we're talking about writings, we're talking about paragraphs, we're talking about sentences, and we're talking about phrases, we're talking about words, and we're talking about morphemes. Don't panic. We won't go into morphemes now, right? We begin with the sentence, at the sentence level, right? So, when your students have to write sentences, how do they go about it? How do they tackle this? Any ideas?
Sometimes they translate from Spanish.
Well, that's one of the biggest problems that we have to face, right? What we call a negative transfer. They think, right, in Spanish, and they translate directly word for word into English, right?
Don't forget what we have taught them about structure and things like that.
Right, maybe you have done your best, right, teaching them the structure of an essay, maybe, and the moment they start writing, they have forgotten it all. They have clean forgotten about it, right? That's true. Yeah?
I think that what they do is they start writing a sentence in fear. So they get an idea, they start writing, and they feel that they can't abandon that idea. So they start writing because so, and then they never stop.
Exactly, Donald, right? Yes, Donald is a dear teacher, right, who has been working with us for a long, long time and is a very experienced teacher in this field, right? And it's true, they stick to their initial idea, and maybe even if they realize that they are wrong halfway through, right, midstream, so to speak, then they don't abandon, they don't give up that initial idea.
You can say there's a paragraph with one sentence.
Exactly.
One sentence, 5 lines long.
Exactly, that's right. And as far as the use of linkers goes, Laurent has just mentioned and, or, but, so, and that's it. No more linkers, right? Those are, of course, the easiest, right, to use. That's a reality we have to face. Yes, yes, please.
Yes, they sometimes write as they speak. They don't do any stops. They just write commas everywhere.
They don't make pauses,
Yes.
right? They don't use periods, full stops, commas, semicolons. Right, that's a big problem with punctuation. We will not be dealing with punctuation today because otherwise our talk will be never ending, right? So the idea is not to remain here to sleep, right, over the night, but to finish approximately around 6 p.m., right? Okay, good. Right, that's true. Yes, absolutely. Right, no doubt. So, we have a thought, when I say we, I'm speaking like the Pope. It's I have thought that the best approach to this would be to listen to the native speakers themselves, right? Native teachers, right, telling us how they teach writing, and then to try to imitate them, right, to try to shadow them, right? So, we'll go then into sentence structure, right?
Simple sentences always express a complete idea. They can be positive or negative sentences or even questions. Now, remember a very important rule. A sentence should always have a subject and a verb. What is the subject? Well, the subject is what the sentence is about. The sentence is always about the subject. Now, sometimes the subject is singular, I mean one, and sometimes the subject is plural, more than one. Jenny is using the stove. Well, Jenny is a singular subject, but my neighbors make a lot of noise. This is the subject, and this is a plural subject. Now, sometimes we have a compound subject, and a compound subject means two subjects or three subjects together. So, example, the table and the chairs look wonderful. In this sentence, we have a compound subject, the tables and the chairs. Another example, the new appliances and furniture might arrive tonight. Now, in this sentence, the subject is a compound subject, the new appliances and furniture. Now, what is a verb? Well, a verb is usually an action, but sometimes it is just a state. It has a tense. It always has a tense, and the tense is the time meaning of the verb. So some examples, the washing machine broke. Well, you can see here, broke is in the past tense. Sebastian isn't here. Well, this isn't an action, isn't. This is called a state. And this is in the present tense. Now, just like subjects, sometimes we have compound verbs, more than one verb. Example, I woke up and cooked breakfast. So remember some simple rules. A sentence always has a subject, it always has a verb, and a sentence always expresses a complete idea.
Well, this was very simple, doesn't it? But honestly, from the bottom of your heart, do all your students always include a subject in the sentences that they write? Not always, right? Typical mistake.
Yeah.
Went to the supermarket. Fui al supermercado. Who went? Well, typical, right? So this question of emphasizing the necessity of a subject, right, is not just trivial. It's of the essence of a good sentence in English, right? Yes? Okay, good. And what about a verb? Is a verb always necessary in a good English sentence? Yes or no? Nobody said anything, so. Okay.
Now, let's talk about some easy rules for writing sentences. And these rules are easy. I'm sure you know these rules, but my students always forget to do these things, and it drives me crazy as a teacher. The beginning of a sentence. Well, the first word, the first letter in the first word of the sentence must be a capital letter. We never break this rule in English. An example, the new facilities are amazing. Capital T in the first word, the. The end of the sentence sometimes has a period. We call this thing a period. So an example, she didn't like the view from the bedroom. You can see capital S to start the sentence, and after bedroom we have a period. Now if it's a question, we don't use a period, we use a question mark. Did you read the lease? Again, capital D to start the sentence, and a question mark at the end of the sentence. And sometimes we use an exclamation point. We don't use a period, we don't use a question mark, we use an exclamation point. And this shows emphasis. This shows a strong meaning. Example, I have never eaten better pasta. Well, we use an exclamation mark, only one, not two or three, and this shows that it has a strong meaning. Now let's talk about spacing. We always need one or two spaces after a period, a question mark, or an exclamation point. Okay? Now if you want to use one space, remember that every sentence must only have one space. If you decide you like two spaces, well, again, it must be the same after every sentence. Two spaces, two spaces, two spaces. You can't, in English, you can't do one space, sentence, two spaces, sentence, one space. You can't do that. So please choose your style. An example, I have never eaten better pasta, exclamation point, one space. It is delicious. Or, I have never eaten better pasta, exclamation point, two spaces. It is delicious. So this is up to you. When I write, I like to use two spaces, but maybe you'll use one space.
So here we have the question of capitalization, right? I don't know if you have noticed lately that there is a growing tendency among students not to capitalize the pronoun I.
Yes.
Have you noticed that?
Yes.
How does that make us feel? To say the least, right? Yeah. Okay. So, I blame technology for this, right? Because some students have the tendency to write in the same way as they write on their mobile phone, when they exchange messages with their friends, writing classmates, and this really goes against the quality of their writing. Unfortunately, it's a reality we have to face, but we should insist on capital letters at the beginning of the sentence, because it's a tendency, it's a good habit that is practically disappearing, right? And if we don't do it, it will become practically extinct.
But I've noticed they don't even write capital letters with their names.
With their names?
Yes.
But that's even worse.
Yes.
Right, yes. And what can we do about that?
So,
I correct it.
Insist.
Right, okay. Yes,
But
exactly.
it calls my illusion that the rest of the teachers, talking about school, they don't correct that.
You mean they don't correct that in Spanish?
Yes.
Oh, I see.
Or perhaps they do and they continue doing the same, because it happens to us in our class, imagine.
Imagine.
Yes.
In the Spanish classes.
Yes.
Right? Well, okay. So live and learn. Right. Now, what about this question of the punctuation marks, exclamation marks, question marks at the end of a sentence? Some students tend to write two. One at the beginning, one at the end. And of course, we should try to eradicate that, right? Because that's definitely wrong. Some students want to sound enthusiastic or emphatic, and so they will be using two or even three at the end. Is that good enough or not?
it's a bit you can't, because it's nice.
It's nice, yes, it's nice. Yes, you're right, it's nice. Now, if the writing is very, very informal, right, practically colloquial, then we will accept it, right? Double exclamation mark or even triple exclamation mark at the end. But otherwise, we won't, right? Yes? Good. So, consider the following. I have written on both boards, right, the types of writing that correspond to each level. We won't be able to do them all today, right, because we'll be running short of time if we do them all. But the thing is that we'll be tackling some, but not all. But, well, just as a brief bird's eye view, in fifth year we have an informal letter or email, a formal email or letter, a story, and for and against essay. Right, in fifth. These are the basic types of writing in fifth year. In superior, we have formal letter or email, semi-formal letter or email, opinion essay, and report. Right? Then, on the other hand, we have teens 5 and teens 6. Well, in teens 5, notice a number of words, right, which is very similar, between 140 and 190 words.
I think for certificate.
Right, exactly, right, paving the way for first certificate, right. We have a story in teens 5, a persuasive formal email, a blog post, and a persuasive essay. And last but not least, in teens 6, we find a magazine article, a report, a for and against essay, and a formal email or complaint, right? And we are practically opening, right, this section of teens 6 writings, because this is our very first year in which we are teaching, right, teens 6. Now, let me tell you something about the number of words. Some students desperately waste their time away, right, counting every single word they have written, right? And that is a complete waste of time, right? Because who cares, after all, if they are 142 or 143? Nobody does, and nobody will. So, what should they do? And these are little tips, right, for you to give on, to pass on to your students, right? Count the lines. Ask them to count the lines. Each line approximately contains 10 words, around 10 words. So, if we are talking about between 140 and 190, that means between 14 and 19 lines, right? Yes. Right?
Yes.
So, is it 14 lines or 14 lines? Which syllable do we stress? 14 lines or 14 lines? Are you sure? Well, if 14 is alone, stands on its own, it's 14. Stress on the last syllable. But when it's used followed by another word, in this case as an adjective, we change the stress. So we say 14 lines, not 14 lines. Why? Because English tries to avoid having two stresses close together. So it has a tendency to separate the stresses. So 14 lines, 14 lines, 14 lines, right? Same as Japanese food. Do we say, for example, she's Japanese? No, she is Japanese. But when I say Japanese food, Japanese, right, the same case, right? Yes, so easy to remember, right? 14 lines, Japanese food. Okay. Well, I remember when I was a student, right, and I found it really hard to remember things, I always tried to associate, right, something with an anecdote or maybe a historical fact or an event. And in that way, I found it much easier to remember things, right? And maybe that's also a tip for your students to remember, right? Yes, go. Okay, shall we go on with sentence structure? Part 3, right? Okay.
Students make a lot of mistakes in sentence because they are writing sentence fragments. Now, what does that mean? Well, remember, a sentence must always have a subject and a verb. If it doesn't have a subject or it doesn't have a verb, it's called a sentence fragment. And remember, a sentence is a complete idea. Let's look at some examples of sentence fragments, and then I'll show you how to fix the examples. In my apartment is cold in the winter. Well, this is called a sentence fragment because this sentence doesn't have a subject, right? Well, we need to write it is cold. So, in my apartment, it is cold in the winter, okay? Usually when we talk about temperature, we say it is cold, it is hot. Another example, he's sleepy all the time. Well, this sentence is not okay. This is a sentence fragment because this sentence doesn't have a verb, and that's not okay in English. How do we fix this? Well, easy. He is sleepy all the time. Now, some more examples. Are many people in the weight room? Are many people in the weight room? Well, this sentence doesn't have a subject, right? So how do we fix this? There are many people in the weight room. Very popular in English. There is, there are. And a last example, the balcony, wonderful. Well, this sentence is bad because it doesn't have a verb. How do we fix it? Easy. The balcony is wonderful. Remember, A sentence always needs a subject and it always needs a verb. If it doesn't have a subject or a verb, this is called a sentence fragment.
So, what about sentence fragments? Do any of your students write in sentence fragments?
Yes.
Yes, typical, right? So that's why we should insist on this a lot, right? So that the sentences will be complete, right? We express a whole idea, we have a subject, we have a predicate, right? And we may sound a bit insistent, maybe, right? We run the risk of sounding a bit insistent, but anyhow, it's well worth the effort, right? Good. Any doubts so far? Any questions? No? Fine. And now we come to the last part of sentence structure, right? Part 4.
A run-on sentence is a sentence that is too long. Many of my students don't know when to stop their sentence, and their sentence is super long, and this is a big problem in my students' writing. A run-on sentence usually has more than one complete idea. And if it has more than one complete idea, you have to be very, very careful. Okay, let's look at some examples. I called my mother, she was not home. I called my mother, she was not home. This is a run-on sentence. Now, it's not very long, but this is a bad sentence because in this sentence we have two complete ideas. And this is bad English. Well, how do we fix a run-on sentence? Well, it's easy. After a complete idea, stop the sentence. Just write a period and then start a new sentence. It's really, really, really easy. So, let's go back to that bad example. I called my mother, she was not home. Well, stop the sentence. I called my mother, period. Space, she was not home. Great, this is good English writing now. Now, another way to fix a run-on sentence is after your complete idea, use a comma. And then we have a space. And then we use a special word. We can use and, but, so, or. Okay, so again, here is the bad example. I called my mother, she was not home. Well, we can fix this with a comma. I called my mother, comma, space, but she was not home. Now this is a good sentence. Let's look at another example. The TV is big, comma, it was expensive. This is a run-on sentence. Now, this sentence has a comma, but it doesn't have one of the special words, and, but, so, or. So, remember the first rule. How do we fix run-on sentences? After your first complete idea, use a period, stop your sentence, and then do a space, and then start your new sentence. So, the TV is big, stop, it was expensive. Or, if you want to use a comma, the TV is big, comma, so it was expensive.
Are you familiar with run-on sentences?
Yes.
Yes? Really? So remember, please, sentence fragments and run-on sentences, right? Two big problems that really pose a challenge to us correcting teachers, right? Well, so let's put into practice what we have been seeing so far in theory. I will read some sentences which are authentic. These are sentences taken from compositions that our students wrote to see what's wrong with them, right? Not a single sentence is ever right. So they are all wrong. Yeah? It's not a question of right or wrong, right? Just yeah, okay. You can never feel boring in London. Boring. Of course, right, yeah. Man who is tired of London is tired of life. Remember that? Yes? So who am I echoing now? Samuel Johnson, right? Yes? Okay. Fine. The travel on the train was really relaxed. Relaxing. That's not the only mistake. Yeah, exactly. Should be the trip or journey, depending on the length, right? Exactly. Good. Another. Paul has only just bought his motorcycle and he's still bored with it. He's already, exactly. He's already bored with it. Right. Fine, not still. Good. Mary's too nice, so you're bound to get on with her. The problem is two, because two is always negative in English. So if she's too nice, then, well, evidently she's not nice at all. Right? Okay, so in any case, very extremely, right? Yes, quite, fairly. Fine, another one. I'm grateful for information you sent. For the information, exactly, right, yes. The omission of the definite article, right, good. Another. I should look for visa information on internet. On the internet, exactly, right, good. Typical mistake. The last weekend they visited the local cemetery. Last weekend, right. They always have a problem with next and last, right? And they use a definite article. That was not the only mistake, as a matter of fact. Exactly, cemetery, no N, right? Spelling mistake with the N of cemetery, right? Good. We lived in Rome since 4 years ago. Exactly, so the tense should be present perfect simple, right? We have lived, or we have been living, right? In any case, right? Yes. Well, she had reason. I was wrong. She was right. Typical mistake, right? Typical mistake. This is what we call a negative transfer, and it's a result of thinking in Spanish and translating into English, right? Yes. Okay. All right. So here we go then. Yesterday, I met the player who he had won the tournament. Who he, double subject. Who he. Right. I enjoyed at the party last night. Myself, exactly. Yes, we need a reflexive pronoun, right? I enjoyed myself. Good. Yeah, he has the luck to live with his family. Right. He is lucky enough. Right? Not he has a luck. Again, negative transfer. Right? He is lucky enough. Yes. The plane unglued 20 minutes late. El avión despegó. When I corrected this mistake, the student insisted that he had looked it up in the dictionary. And so, the dictionary said, despegar and glue. So he can use it correctly. Right? Well, and this is one thing that we should always pay attention to when we teach vocabulary. To teach how words are used, not just the meaning of a word, right? For example, suppose you say, well, okay, find out is discover. All right, let's go on. So, Christopher Columbus found out America in 1492. So it's not enough to give them the meaning, we should give them the use, right? So meaning and use makes a pretty picture. Okay. Now, look at this sentence. It's a really weird sentence, right? Would you like to listen to a weird sentence? Yes. As a child, her grandmother died. So come. If her grandmother died as a child, when she was a child, then she would have been born. So here we have a problem with ambiguity, right? The subject is ambiguous. We cannot tell who it refers to, whether it was the granddaughter or the grandmother, right? So ambiguity. Fine. Okay, another weird sentence, a bit longer this time. She woke up early, went to the bathroom, looked at herself in the mirror, and realized that she had a very strong toothache.
By the reflection in the mirror.
So, to begin with, do you realize that you have a strong toothache when you look at yourself in the mirror? Yes. Of course it is. Exactly. So you feel it, and you feel it the moment you wake up. So probably,
because your toothache.
that's right, exactly. So probably what the student meant was that when she looked at herself in the mirror, she realized that she had a swollen cheek, not a strong toothache. Right? So this is a question, what's the problem here? What's the mistake?
It's kind of taken a bit for granted that you're going to elaborate on what they give you, and you've got to imagine the sweating and everything.
Exactly, and it's a question of logical thinking, right? Logical thinking that leads to logical writing. Yes? Good. Okay. None of the twins plays any sports. None is wrong. It should be neither. Exactly. If I would have more free time, I would train more.
Why don't you then? It's a question of knowledge.
Right, so?
It's not action, it's if I had.
Right, if I had, exactly. Right? Yes, I'm a real past. If I had, simple past. Okay, I'm not sure where is the show. Where the show is, word order. Right, another problem, word order. Right. When he will start his new job, he will use a company car. When he starts, exactly. Tense, problem with tense. Right, exactly, good. Mm-hmm. Now, she wondered, what did I do in my spare time? Exactly, indirect questions, right? Not what did I do, but rather what I did. Exactly, good, fine. I never ate Chinese food. I've never eaten, right, good. How many plays has Shakespeare written?
Yes.
He's still alive, should be very happy. Jumping up and down with joy. Shakespeare's still alive, right? So, simple past, of course, right? Dead people, simple past. Good, fine. Jane looked different as she lost weight. Maybe she looked younger, right? Yes. But the problem is not different, right? The problem is another part of the sentence. Jane looked different as she lost weight. Had lost. Right, exactly. Past perfect simple. Right? Problem with the tense. You don't have to tell anyone because it's a secret. You don't have to tell anyone because it's a secret. You mustn't. Exactly. It's a prohibition. You mustn't. Right. Here we have a problem with modal verbs. Right? Exactly. I was able to make him to change his mind. To. Yeah, exactly. Verb structure. Make someone do. Keeping fit isn't easy unless you do an effort. Make. Unless you make an effort. Right. Collocations. Right? Yes. Verb noun collocations. Right. I invited John, but he said he was busy. He told me. Right? Exactly. All these sentences have been taken from real compositions. Right? Yes. I'm not just coming up with something invented. Right? Okay. Dialogue between two students. We have a new teacher. Oh, how is he? What is he like? Exactly, right. When do we use the question, how is he or how is she? Right, for help. Exactly, after an operation, right? Exactly, right. Last but one. She works like a psychiatrist. As, right. And what about Dr. Rimolo? Would she work as a psychiatrist or like a psychiatrist? Like, exactly, right. She was a fake psychiatrist. And the last one, right? Last but not least. The hotel is rather small. Its maximum capacity is 40 guests. But now I need to write something on the board, right? Otherwise we won't be able to notice a mistake. its capacity, its maximum capacity, written like this. So, in this case, we need the possessive adjective. Exactly, it's without the apostrophe, right? Yes, without the apostrophe and only one word. It's, right? Well, okay, so these are real examples. Now, we have started with some isolated sentences taken at random from compositions that our students wrote in the past. Later on, we'll be tackling complete compositions, right? And we'll be able to see the whole thing, right? And of course, we'll be correcting them, right?